Alright, welcome back, guys. Looks like everything is working. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Happy Thursday, everyone. Let me see that everything is working. There. Thank you, I don't want to listen to myself. There we go. I know, today isn't day 28. I knew there was something wrong with the title. I knew there was something wrong with the title that I had to fix. There we go. Day 29. There we go. The 29th day. Okay. Alright. Get your engines ready because today we begin the swamp region. Yes, all together. Last time, just as a quick recap, we finished all of Northland Expedition, so we did a 100% completion of all of the side quests in Northland Island. I don't know why I was not able to. I explored the island 100%. Apparently these are not explorable through there. We'll see from now on. And we started, as you can see, our journey through the swamp region. We basically got a foothold, the portal there, and a monolith. But today is the day in which we'll begin with 100% the main. This will be the mainstream that will be dedicated to the exploration of the swamp eastern region of Ancaria, as you can see. Then we'll probably get through the desert or to the desert or something like that. Alright. That's just a quick recap. Last time, in case you're interested, we did a boss rush of all of the world bosses in Northland Island. I'm calling it Northland Island, but I don't know if it's its real name. But well, the main mission was called Northland Expedition, so there you have it. We did a boss rush. We killed a lot of world bosses. One of them could actually kill me, which was the Ice Hydra, which I commend it for it. But after doing that, as you can see, we got some juicy loot. Just as a quick recap, it won't take me longer than 1 more minute, people. Just so people who join this, watching this as a YouTube bod, who join us right now watching this as a YouTube pod, or in the future, pretty much in the future, you know that pretty much what we've been doing. As you can see here, I got some juicy loot, and I could finally balance the elemental type of damage that I'm dealing. After 29 days, only today, I could perfectly combine dual wielding. As you can see, I'm using 2 tapes rather than 1. I could finally combine dual wielding with a decent balance of my elemental damage types. Only today. I'll explain this. This will be the main topic of analysis for today because it's pretty much an endgame gameplay mechanics. Remember, we've pretty much already analyzed all of the aspects that the game had to offer so far in terms of level design, gameplay mechanics, enemy variety, objective variety, graphics, performance, pretty much the main story, the soundtrack, the quality and the variety of the sounds, pretty much everything. The level design, the influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics, etc. We've been analyzing the game for 29 days. However, this is a mechanic, what I just showed you, the balance of the elemental damage types that I could never achieve, right? So today we'll focus on that, and we'll focus on why that is important. Secondly, I want you to expand a bit more on the genre classification, something that we started talking last time. But well, it's been almost 5 minutes, so let's begin with the gameplay, and as we play, we'll continue with our ongoing analysis. Remember that by the time we finish the game, we are doing a 100% completion of it, we will get to the final analysis that we so much love and do with every game. So, let's begin. Village Priest Elsas. What a terrible name. Hey you, I saw you leaving the hut. I suspect you are carrying a letter for the young novice. Yes, this is a side quest that we started earlier. Earlier on Tuesday. Which basically involves a son who is trying to contact his father, who is outside of this village, and apparently the lizard men are kind of like a cult that are kind of like isolated and you cannot get out of it. So the son tried to contact his father. We pretty much were intercepted by the authorities, the local authorities of the cult, and we delivered a different letter, and the father got angry with the son, and basically we are still carrying that letter. I think you didn't have a choice, you had to do it. So you're carrying a letter, and now we return. A letter from the young novice. I know the evil ways of that cult and how they try to drive a wedge between the novices and their families. Give me the letter. Hey, that's a pretty good turn of events. I actually wanted to help them. Can't I choose or something? No? Oops, doesn't look like it. I would have given him the letter if I had a choice, but looks like I don't. Okay. Alright, this is kind of like a different village. And we pretty much have to go over there to deliver the letter to the son. So the father hates him, and well, and so the cult can continue doing their shit. I don't know. Whatever, people. I'm just completing. I'm just focusing on a 100% completion. Because sometimes this happened to me the other day. We don't have fast travel, right? We'll have to do it manually. Hey, we have another quest there. The poachers. Okay, the poachers. A lizard man in a village asked me to be on the lookout for a poacher. I'm also supposed to check all the good fishing spots until I have found him. Then he is to disappear forever. Okay, we'll begin with this one, and then we'll complete the letter side quest thingy. Okay, as I've said last time, I don't know if you've noticed. Let me alt tab. So there we go. Perfect. Let me alt tab so I can flash the internal memory of the game. This happened to me the other day because I actually wanted to help the son contact his father and do kind of like the good side of the quest. The thing is that in this game you only have two options when you have to kind of like make a moral choice. Damn it, it was over there. When you have to make a moral choice, and the options only say accept and decline, and basically it's not explicit what you. It's kind of like relative. The moral choice is relative to the dialogue. It's relative to the dialogue, and sometimes it's not clear at all if you press decline or accept, which one is the one that actually leads you to do the right, the good side quests, which are the ones that I usually choose, because I love traditional stories. But well, basically that's the thing. It has happened to me several times. So I would have changed the naming conventions of the moral decisions. Like, they are not clear for the player because they are relative. They are not objective. They are not absolute. They are always relative to the situational side of things. Like the NPC tells you what to do, tells what's happening, and then you say accept or decline. And sometimes that initial description of the NPC isn't clear enough. Now, before you think that I'm stupid, I do read all of the NPC dialogues before. There we go. This one? Aha. I couldn't find an illegal fisherman here either. Just a few tracks. I should just follow them. Okay. Yeah, I remember that on Tuesday we also followed the tracks in a pretty similar fashion. Okay, so let's go back over there. Let's go back over there and here. Nothing again, but he can't be far. Alright. And there he is. It's over. Stop stealing from the village. I'm merely a harmless fisherman. The cult is trying to pin something on me. Please lay down your weapon. Help! See? And he attacks. Can I avoid killing him? Or some shit like that? See? For example, here I had no choice or what. Right. Lay down your weapon. my doppelganger did the work. Did the job for me. Alright. See, for example, there, I don't know if I had a choice or not. It's not clear. The moral decisions of the game are not clearly laid.
Can you feel death now?
Before the player. Like, it's easy to make mistakes. I also don't know if, depending on the quests that you do, you're kind of like locked out of the other quests of the game. But well, I wanted to highlight that because it has happened to me sometimes. Okay. Yeah, good job. There is one less poacher and we can fish for swamp fish with better results now. What's more, the cult is happy about it because the poacher had lost favor with them. Thank you, my friend. Here's your reward.
Glory and power.
Love, truth, and pardon error. Voltaire. Pretty famous French philosopher. We read this one last time. You can get more with a kind word of nah, and with a kind word alone. Okay. Well, let's take the southern path to begin exploring the place as we turn in our quests. We also do this one since we are close. Yeah, we can go to there. Let's go over there then. May I select the quests? The quest? Is it selected? Yes, in fact, it is selected. So let's take the southern path. South Hissil'Ta. That's the idea, people. South Hissil'Ta. That's the idea. Alright, for today I wanted to focus on exploring the endgame stat system gameplay mechanics. Since we've pretty much already covered the basic mid-game gameplay mechanics and everything, I wanted to focus on the endgame gameplay mechanics because only on Tuesday, we were able to finally balance the type of elemental damage that we deal. Only on Tuesday we were damage shit. What happened to it? 14 minutes, what happened to it? This hasn't happened to me since since 3 weeks ago. God damn it. God damn it, this game. We have so many modern games with remakes and unnecessary stuff, and this game, I after applying thousands of fixes, it still has some weird random crashes. And you could see that on Tuesday, we explored the whole island, and we didn't have a single crash in 3 hours of gameplay. Like, it's so incredibly random that I have already tried everything, and I've managed to make it run modded at for 3 hours without crashes, so it's pretty much the best you will get with the game. It would be a perfect game if it weren't for that crash. Oh, the irony of life. You can have everything, but there will always be something that that won't be perfect. Don't worry, people, probably now it won't crash for 3 hours. It works like that. It has happened to me 1,000 times. You could see it in 29 days of game, in 28 days of gameplay. It pretty much crashes randomly, and then it works for 3, 4, 5 hours without problem. It's like that. It's random. It's the most random memory leak crash I've ever seen, and I've seen things like probably the most broken game on PC ever is the port of Prototype 1 and 2. It's probably the most broken port on PC ever created. The PC ports of Prototype, which are pretty good games, by the way. Pretty good. They are kind of like infamous clones or Sunset Overdrive clones. So where were we? Alright. Sorry for that, people. Let's continue. There's nothing I can do about it. You could see that I've already tried thousands of fixes, and the game has a severe memory leak that has never been fixed. Okay, as I was mentioning, let me open my character panel. As I get through the side quest, I can comment you about the analysis of the endgame gameplay mechanics. See over there where it says weapon damage. Today I wanted to focus on reviewing the endgame gameplay mechanics. Only on Tuesday, which is stream number 28, I was able to finally push... There it is, the mob. Only on Tuesday I was able to finally push my physical damage below 50%. It's extremely difficult to do when you are dual wielding, especially, because you need both weapons to have kind of like mixed elemental damage types. This apparently, seemingly simple mechanic adds a lot of abstract complexity to the gameplay mechanics and the combat of the game. Now, what do I mean with this? What do I mean with this? The abstract complexity of the game, it's much higher than in a lot of modern isometric action RPG games. Think about Diablo 3. Think about Titan Quest. As far as I can tell, in those games, you don't have elemental damage types. Pretty much your damage is always the same. It's kind of like the most... Think about it on... I know it's extremely abstract to think about it, but think of it in the most abstract level possible. In Diablo 3, you basically add multipliers to your damage, right? And you don't care about anything else. You just increase your damage, but your gear increases your damage by 10%, by 15%, by 25%. The complexity, the abstract complexity of the stat system of the game is much, much lower. The same with Titan Quest, there aren't elemental damage types. Now, this may sound stupid, and a lot of reviewers take this for granted, which is a big, big mistake. Why? Because this game features a fully fledged elemental damage system, pretty similar to Hellgate London, another great game that we played, which has pretty much a similar system, in which you have fire damage, in which you have not poison. I think it's a different type of damage in the case of Hellgate London, but you get the point. You have pretty much 3-4 damage types that you can... Hey, what's going on with this rat? It's not taking damage. There we go. There's pretty much 3-4 elemental damage types that exponentially increase the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics. Now, this is also multiplied by 2, this is doubled, because in this game, not only you have to worry about the elemental... For example, in Skyrim, I don't know if in Skyrim there are... In Skyrim, I don't think, in Elder Scrolls games, I don't think there are different elemental damage types, for example, or in World of Warcraft. See that I can mention a lot of modern games that don't have this. But in the case of Hellgate London, in the case of Borderlands, another great example, in the case of Borderlands, you have to worry about 4 elemental damage types or so. That increases the abstract complexity of the game, also in Sacred 2, because you have to worry about 4 different, completely different attack types that are not related with each other. So, practical consequence of all of this. Even if you have a lot, you not only worry about multiplying your base damage like you do in Diablo 3. Think about it. In Diablo 3, increase my damage by 10%, increase my damage by 20%, and that's it. Brain dead. Like, nothing else. Nothing else. That's it. You don't have to worry about anything else. In this game, all enemies have physical resistance. Well done, thank you. That will deter the poachers for a while. Perfect. Magnificent. I think we've cleared the area. So we still have a lot to explore, and we have to turn in some quests here that will probably then turn into nested quests. So we'll do this. We'll take the southern path. We'll explore. Go back to the village. I don't have a teleportation and a monolith there. No. Okay. So we'll take the southern path, cover more of the terrain, and turn in the quests. This system, implementing an elemental, a fully fledged elemental damage system, exponentially increases the abstract complexity of the game. Think about it, how we were playing, compare how we were playing at the beginning. We need the local map. Here, yeah, here. We'll take this path then. Think about how we were playing at the beginning of the walkthrough, and I only cared about physical damage, and that was pretty much it. But then, thanks to the excellent enemy variety of the game, which is an element that always somehow combines with these stat systems, in the case of these games, think about Borderlands and how, hey, we got a free portal here. This one will be perfect because it's right in the middle of the swamp region. Perfect. That one will be useful. Remember, we can go back to portals without having only one selected like the monoliths, so it's better. The enemy variety interacts perfectly with the abstract complexity of the stat system of the game. Nowadays, reviewers take all of these stuff for granted, and that he impaired my movement. And that's terrible. That's terrible, because if you compare this system, the stat system in this game, with a lot of modern games, the complexity of this one is exponentially higher because of what I just mentioned. Even if I have, at the beginning of the game, I started playing with just physical damage, like all classes, it has nothing to do with the class. You always start like that. But then, eventually, you will stumble upon an enemy that has 100% physical resistance, right? And then your attacks, no matter how powerful they are, they will be useless. You will need to balance your elemental types of damage. Pretty similar. It's a pretty similar philosophy, development philosophy and mindset that is used in Borderlands and Hellgate London. Even more in Borderlands. So I hate it when reviewers take this for granted, because the abstract complexity of the game is exponentially increased. You have to balance the elemental damage types, and you know what that causes? It causes the player to think, and it causes the player to have more variables into account in his head while playing the game. Because you will have enemies that have, for example, the rats here have poison resistance. But there's another element that I wanted to comment that was extremely subtle, and we only could discover it on Tuesday due to the fact that we could only loot my second staff that actually enabled the modification of the elemental attack types. But before we get to that second element, it's also incredible that the game not only applies this system to the offensive section of the game, let's say, to the attacks, but also to your resistances, and the fact that you can, remember, we can change the resistances, and we are meant to change the resistances, on the go. I mentioned this some streams ago, but we did it very briefly and not with the complexity of the endgame gameplay mechanics. You can see there that I can change my passive elemental resistances, but it's more complex than in most games. How do most games handle passive elemental resistances? Let's keep using Borderlands as an example, because it's kind of like in Borderlands, elemental resistances are pretty much the core of the level design and the gameplay mechanics and the enemy design mechanics. In Borderlands and in Hellgate London, the defensive elemental resistances are passive, precisely. Why? Because all of this is handled through looting gear with passive buffs. In the case of this game, this is dissociated. The resistance and the bonuses, because you have to actively select them. That's just typical. The wretched old man, well, he can go to the lake. I don't care. The cult is my family now. Alright, this is the ending of the mission. See, this is the flaw, one of the flaws that I've encountered. It's one of the few flaws that I've encountered with the game. Besides the targeting, I would say the area of effect targeting, it's a bit unprecise, because you cannot target the ground when doing area of effect attacks. And another flaw is precisely the naming convention of the moral system of the game. Kind of like the fact that the text, it's always relative to the situation that basically makes you select accept or decline. The moral system is not perfectly laid out like in Mass Effect if you compare it. Kind of like the decisions are not clear. Because it has happened to me. It happened to me with the dragon cult in the previous chapter, that I wanted to actually help the rebels, but I ended up choosing accept, and it was the other way around. So it's not clear. The naming conventions of the moral system could have been improved. The targeting system of the game, especially with area of effect attacks, because you cannot target the ground. You have to always hover over the enemy. And well, and then we also commented that the targeting system of the game doesn't have any kind of lock-on system, which would be weird, because it has the isometric camera and the gameplay mechanics of an isometric action RPG like Diablo or Titan Quest or many more. So that one, the fact that it doesn't have a lock-on would be normal, but it should be able to target the ground to kind of like substitute that lack of lock-on mechanics. Natural lack of lock-on mechanics, because it's an isometric action RPG. The Tsum Tsum route. This was a fetch quest, pretty much. Oh, very nice indeed. I've concocted a new mixture in the meantime. Would you like to try it? No. I don't trust me. But I'll try it myself. Not bad. Yes, that's well. Ugh. It explodes in blood. It has happened to me a whole lot of times with this game. I need to train a lizard man voice to read them, because our goblin voice to read them was pretty good.
I have reached my destination.
But I need to... How would they sound? Now we can mimic the one from the main quest eventually. Let's see.
Well done.
It'll be difficult to mimic people.
That you're worthy to follow our ways. You may now join us on a mission. There's a memorial site being built not far from here, which must be destroyed.
Now we get to the second element. Don't worry. Yeah?
As soon as it's finished, the undead it names will rest eternally. Therefore, destroying it after it has been built would be pointless. Get ready.
It's pretty similar to the Goblin Boys. With Goblin Boys, I would really like... Well done. You have proven that you are worthy to follow our ways. You may now join us on a mission. There's a memorial site built not far from here. Yeah, but these ones don't sound like the goblin boys. Pretty good. See, I've trained my goblin boys. I also have the ogre boys. Oh well. Remember, this is the main quest. This is the main quest. We need to kind of like... It's pretty similar. In terms of the grandeur category of the analysis, the storyline, the plot of the side of the main quest, it's pretty much similar, in the sense that you always need to try to, you always try to kind of like get, get along with the local tribe to achieve your goals. Remember, we are doing a multi-dual campaign, so we have both sides of the coin here. We have the complete plot line. Ask the other alchemists for some advice. By all the eternal swamp, gases. I just hate that darned alchemist. He used to conduct experiments that were useful, but these days, now you say he's turned himself into a mental amoeba. Amoeba. Fantastic, brilliant. Go to the other alchemist and tell him what happened. Maybe he'll know what to do. Okay, ready. Everything's ready. We have all of the side quests. So I think we can... I wonder if that quest actually updated and we need to explore the place. Alright. We have a quest right there, and then we will explore the rest of the place. Let me see. Remember, we're going for a 100% exploration of the place, including 100% secrets, everything. I know it's crazy because the game is massive, but... and because of the complexity of the level design. Kind of like, it's not a linear map at all. Some rude. Even I could... Sorry, the letters are way too small. I could have told him how dangerous that stuff is. Now I'm supposed to fix everything again, am I? I'm not sure, but I think this tincture of rye juice and rot mud should lessen the effect of the Sum root. Well, I think it will once you give it to me. So, is it? Nope, there's another quest there. I want to grab them all because then I will depart and then we'll end up noticing that we depart and we have a lot of quests that we have to go back for. It's better to do it this way, trust me. Who? What? Aha! Who are you? I'm sorry, but I'm rather busy. I've just had a brilliant idea, and I must start work on this new creation immediately. Prison of amnesia. Well, perfect. That's it. Let's get out of here. My... Fuck. It goes on. Thank you for help. Here.
Never had any doubts.
It's a nested quest, people. Well, remember, we are doing a 100% completion of the game. So, we'll do everything. Kill all of the conservative lizard warriors. Oh, political unrest we have here. These lizards are completely mad. What with all of their old rituals and hocus pocus, they have even dared to name one of their members in an initiation ritual. Heretics. After their rituals, the younger warriors celebrate the with wild drunken parties. It'll be child's play for you to finish them off. At last we can strengthen our grip on the region. Go slay the lizard warriors, blah, blah, and bring me their heads. Yeah, another fetch quest. As I was mentioning, the second element of the stat system of the gameplay mechanics, besides the fact that it's also defensive. Give me a second. Alright, let's do this. We'll explore the whole region here, so we have a complete exploration of it. And then we'll go, of course, south and keep... we need to find the next settlement, I guess, because we are done here. We did a lot on Tuesday and today. Let's explore the place. For that, we'll use the local map. And we'll cover the whole terrain. Kill everything in our way. Let's explore the place. I better unmount when we have damage over time. Okay. I've lost 2 spiders like that, and those are worth 1 million gold. So I don't want that to happen again. Okay. Well, we could use... Let me teleport here, because we have 2 quests there that we couldn't do on Tuesday. We'll begin with those. Maybe now we can do them. Because they are kind of like the delayed quest system of the game. forces you to backtrack, essentially. Pretty intelligent and ingenious way of encouraging backtracking by the player in an open world game. Alright, second element of the stat system, people. Second element of the stat system. Of the abstract complexity that I was mentioning. There's a difference, and this is something that, besides the fact that, as you can see, it's not only about elemental offense, but also defense. As I can manipulate with my relics the active defense, elemental defense. There's a difference, there's a huge difference in the complexity of the abstract gameplay mechanics of this game when compared to Borderlands. So far, I've said that it's pretty similar to Borderlands in the sense that you have elemental damage types, offensive elemental damage types, and Borderlands doesn't have elemental resistances though. Or if it has, they are treated as a whole, kind of like you don't manage them individually. They're kind of like increased elemental resistances, like all of them at the same time. Here with the relic system, it's kind of like individual, and it forces the player to actively think according to the enemy that he's facing. For example, you see that green bar down there, that's poison damage and poison resistance. That means that I have my poison relics here. But for example, this one is, the zombie has magic damage. So I change to magic relics and I'll take less damage. That active system, which isn't the second element that I was going to mention, it's already more complex than Borderlands 1 and 2 and all Borderlands games. Wait, let me change the AIs. With this you manipulate the artificial intelligence's range. There we go. The second element that adds yet another layer of abstract complexity to the gameplay mechanics is that spells and basic attacks have different... Hang on a second, I don't want them to kill me. Then we'll have to go back all the way back there. They've impaired my movement. Ah, they killed my doppelganger, dude. Ah, there we go. Those are Lizardman become Lizardman hands. Good. There we go. See, we'll do this. We'll complete this area mission as we explore the place. Anyways, as I've said, we are exploring every inch of the terrain. We are not gonna stop now, people. After 29 days, we'll see this to the end. All right. Let me see if those quests can be accepted now. We can pick them up. The second element. Spells and basic attacks are handled separately. Their elemental damage type is handled separately. Pay attention to my bar up there, and you will see that my spells, then once we stop I'll show you more evidently, but you can see that my spells have a completely different elemental damage type when compared to my basic attacks. Why aren't they dead? I think I'm not targeting them. Some shit like that. Yeah, sometimes. See what I meant when I said that the targeting system is not 100% precise? The point and click mechanics could have been... The hitboxes of the point and click mechanics could have been refined a bit more. I know it's a game from 2008, but even back in 2008, for example, Titan Quest, just so we use a contemporary game, Titan Quest is from 2006, had a much more precise hitbox detection. Let me get rid of all of them. Let's use the Divine Gift. This is taking way too long. Even back in 2006, for example, Titan Quest had a precise hitbox detection. And even if we go even back further, we also played Space Siege, Dungeon Siege, even Diablo 2, I would argue, has a more precise point and click when targeting enemies. That's kind of like, it feels floaty. But well, let's get to the second element that I showed you, people, because between that, look at that. Please pay attention to that for a second. I know that during the battle it's difficult to notice. This is something that we didn't analyze on Tuesday, and we haven't analyzed yet because it's kind of like an endgame gameplay mechanics, because you need to loot a specific you need to loot a weapon that has that actual a piece of gear. It can be a piece of gear, not only weapons, that can convert your damage like this. Pay attention to this. This is my basic attack weapon damage, right? Up until Tuesday, we had 50% physical damage and 50%, roughly, a bit less. It was kind of like 60% physical and 40% fire damage. Thanks to the fact that I've been able to loot only after 29 days on Tuesday. After 28 days. On Tuesday, I was able to loot a second staff which has fire and magic damage types, elemental damage. I've been able to balance this properly. But as you can see there, that's the first layer of complexity, as we've been mentioning, the elemental damage system. But as you can see there, there's a second layer of complexity inside of the offensive, abstract complexity of the game. Basically, the basic attacks, essentially the basic attacks. My basic attacks, now that I've looted the correct gear, have 30%, roughly 30% physical damage, 30% magic damage, and 30% fire damage. Alright, everything of what I've explained up until now. The first layer of the system. Here's the second layer. Here is the second layer. You can see there that my combat art, which is a naming convention, the naming conventions of this game are pretty weird. For example, accuracy is attack, evasion is defense. They are pretty much classic Dungeons and Dragons and naming conventions. You can see there that my combat art is poison. Why is it poison? I couldn't explain this for quite a while, but thanks to the fact that I've looted the correct weapons and gear now, I know that it's kind of like dissociated. There you can see how it's changing.
Hurry! They're almost done with the memorial.
Alright. Hurry. We need to loot one more. Don't tell me that this is a timed mission. This game has some timed missions, pretty similar to Daggerfall, for example. There you can see that my abilities, the elemental damage type of my abilities, is dissociated when compared with my basic attacks. That's ingenious and something that I haven't seen in pretty much, I don't think in any isometric action RPG or MMORPG. Here's a side quest or what? No, looks like this one is not part of the, it's not part of the one that we're doing. See how when I change my combat art, it changes the attack type. The abilities of the game are modified by this that I got here. There you can see that it says damage converted to... This is the first piece of gear that I got that it can do this. There you can see that it says damage converted to poison. But notice that it doesn't affect my basic attacks. It doesn't affect my basic attacks. It only affects my abilities. By extension, as you can see, notice that the bolts of my doppelganger, of my clone, they deal poison damage because they are green. They are green and they deal poison damage. I know this for a fact. There you can see that this is affecting my abilities, while my weapons, because I'm dual wielding, are affecting my basic attacks. So it's ingenious because the abilities, your spells, are dissociated in their elemental damage type when compared to your basic attacks. It's ingenious. See how all of these subtle details that are invisible to the naked eye, to common reviews. Sadly, I wish it wasn't like that. But well, otherwise my reviews wouldn't be unique, people. that's the thing. all of these subtle gameplay mechanics usually are never explored, and they're ingenious because if you think about it, when you cast a spell, let's think, well, when you cast a spell, I don't want to say in real life because it would be way too much, but let's think about which is the more, like, kind of like simulated, realistic, metaphysically realistic scenario. Let's suppose that we actually live in a Dungeons and Dragons universe and spells exist. Most games choose a brain-dead, streamlined, plain way of handling this simulated metaphysical reality, right? Because they channel the elemental type through the weapon. In Borderlands you have 4 weapons. You don't have one. You have 4 weapons. And each of them, and you have to rotate between them.
Can you feel death now?
To change your elemental damage type. Elemental damage type is tied, it's intrinsically, inherently tied to the loot, to your weapon. In this game, casting is dissociated. The elemental type of casting, is dissociated. And if you think about it, it's extremely realistic. Because if the depiction of this abstract concept of magic, that's why this is a metaphysically simulated scenario. In that simulation, if magic comes from the human, then why is the elemental type of that magic defined by a weapon? See that it's not cohesive. I know it sounds stupid because of course we are not mages in real life and nothing of this is real. It's not the metaphysical reality. It's not metaphysical reality, it's a simulated example. But if you think about it, the cohesion of the philosophy, of the design philosophy behind the game, it's much more realistic. Dissociating the elemental damage type with the weapon elemental damage, if you think about it. Now, if we get into the realm of science fiction, we could say, well, but the weapon channels the natural magic of the mage and it turns it into a specific type of elemental damage. Yes, we can have that science fiction argument, but that still, none of that changes the metaphysically realistic fact that the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics of this game is higher when is objectively higher when compared with a lot of modern games. Now, remember what I always say, people, I'm not saying that all modern games are shit, using simple words. I'm not saying that at all. There are a lot of amazing modern games, but it is true that objectively comparing the abstract complexity of the gameplay systems, on average, the complexity is higher in a lot of old school games. This is a clear example. One of the crowning achievements of Sacred 2, without a doubt, after all of these days of analysis, I would definitely say, is the complexity, the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics, and how they relate with each other. No, I don't want to lose my spider, we'll have to fight here. And how they relate. Because you can see how a stupid stat that we usually wouldn't... It doesn't even exist in a lot of modern games. But a stupid stat that we usually probably would never pay attention to, like damage converted to something, to an elemental damage type, how it directly changed the whole system. Because now on Tuesday I was only dealing fire and physical damage, pretty much the default damage type that all enemies are resistant against, pretty much. kind of like the default type of damage. All enemies, regardless of their type, have physical damage resistance.
Heretic.
But now, I deal physical damage, of course, magic damage, and fire damage. Sorry. With my basic attacks. See, magic, fire, and physical. But with my spells, I deal poison damage. And you must be thinking, Eraser, how does that influence the gameplay mechanics and everything? It influences everything. Because when it comes into contact, when this mechanic, when this complex abstract system comes into contact with another element that we've analyzed, which is the diversity of the enemy variety, or the diversity of enemies, of enemy types, the incredible enemy variety of the game, in which they have different resistances and attack types. As you can see there, for example, there you can see that the rat, as you can see there, it deals physical damage, it deals poison damage, it resists the lower bar, the bottom bar is the defense, and the upper bar is the attack, the offensive one. In this case it deals the same, but in a lot of other cases they are mixed. So you have to actively change your defenses. It's kind of you have to actively change your defenses and actively change your offensive damage types. Notice all of this incredible abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics. For example, I cannot show you because here I have a combo, but if I get to my skill tree, for example, here you can see Levin Array. This one would normally deal physical damage, which is resisted, remember, by all enemies in the game, making this ability stupid and useless. But thanks to the fact that I looted this ability now isn't useless. In fact, it's amazing. The same goes for Clustering Maelstrom, which is a mixed. This one only dealt physical damage previously to looting these globes. But as you can see, this one it changed completely. This ability was useless previous to this because it dealt physical damage. Not useless. It was average because it has unlimited targets. Its area of effect is pretty much the only area of effect I have, the best one. It has unlimited targets, but the damage type was physical, right? So it wouldn't deal a lot of damage. But a quarter of the enemies of all of the game don't have poison damage, poison resistance, sorry. So they are vulnerable to poison damage. So now that ability is in fact my best area of effect ability. It changed completely. When you have a game that the loot, or not only the loot, when the inherent elements of the gameplay mechanics interact with each other to such a degree that they completely influence each other. For example, a lot of weapons in Borderlands do this, but as I've said, because of everything that I've said, the abstract complexity here is much higher. We'll activate this one. The abstract complexity here is because we already have the portal that we unlocked back then. So we've explored the place, right? Oh yeah, pretty much. We've done that. Let's go west then. Let's keep going. The abstract complexity is much higher. The abstract complexity is much higher when you have a game that all of these elements influence each other so much. I mentioned this when we analyzed Evencast Rise of the Mage. And when we analyzed Hellgate London. In that case, it was the level design element of the game instead of the gameplay mechanics. But you get the point. When an element of the game influences another element to such a degree that it completely changes it, you have a complex system. And because of everything that I've explained, the complexity here is much more exponential. Because you have to worry about defense as well. In the case of Evencast Rise of the Mage, and in the case of Hellgate London, for example, that we've analyzed on the channel, I mentioned the level design. The level design, people. Why? Why? This is something that reviewers never think about. I always mention it. See, for example, this one has magic, damage, and resistance. The level design, the influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics, something extremely important that reviewers never pay attention to. Why? Because you need to
All-powerful.
pay close attention. It's a pretty subtle element that people just don't care about. The reviewers don't care about, because you need to have played a lot of, generally game reviewers from specialized press. Generally, they don't play a lot of games. They kind of like rush the games. They don't savor them. They don't play them in depth. For example, I remember seeing the gameplay, the infamous gameplay of Cuphead from the New York Times, for example, just as a random example. I know it's not dedicated gaming press like IGN or whatever, but it's pretty much the same. They rush the release of the review because they have kind of like a deadline. That's why I take 29 days, I take 30 days or whatever, and I do a 100% exploration of the game, because it's not fair to review a game if you don't do a 100% exploration of it and on the hardest difficulty, because you don't get to the inherent objective nature of the gameplay mechanics. Related to that, the influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics is always important. I mentioned this with Evencast Rise of the Mage. The narrow passage and Hellgate London. The narrow passages of the dungeons in Evencast Rise of the Mage and Hellgate London, they would prevent the player from running away. And the main way of getting killed in most isometric action RPG games is precisely being surrounded by a horde of enemies and getting killed. Or when was the last time you got killed in Diablo or Titan Quest? Think about it and think if you were surrounded by enemies or you were going up against a single enemy. 99% of the time, even with pro players doing league, ranked or whatever, they are killed because they are surrounded by enemies. The influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics, it's successful. Imagine if I could just run away like I do here in the overworld, but the game does, but Sacred 2 does have dungeons. So I can run away here, but I cannot run away in dungeons, and we've had a lot of clear examples in which I couldn't run away. For example, the ice Hydra that we did last time over the double Karnak Demon, or whatever, whichever boss fight or any mob of enemies. Think about them and think of any isometric action RPG and how you were killed the last time you played it. You'll see that it will 99% of the time be you being surrounded by enemies that actually prevent you from escaping. That's why the level design of the dungeon is important, and it's something that reviewers don't pay attention to, and it's a grave mistake. Ah, there was a trap there. Hang on a second, I don't want to lose another spider, those cost $1 million, so... let's head to the... Damn it, we have a lot of exploration to do today, eh? There we go, to the west. I have a hunch that we will eventually encounter another settlement here. It can be an empty spot. Give me a second. Damn it, people. We are getting into the winter here. We are getting into the winter. That's why we have... But though, I must say, I mentioned this on Tuesday. In Buenos Aires, kind of like... Or fair winds in English. The capital of Argentina. Pretty much, the winter is not kind of like... It always varies between... The lowest possible is kind of like 5 degrees Celsius. And we never get snow. Oh, so sad. So bad, so sad, people. Yes, I mentioned this when in the previous stream a lot on Tuesday, because it was all about the Northland Island, which had a lot of snow. I could never touch snow. There's no snow where I live. The winter in Argentina doesn't have snow unless you go kind of like to the Antarctic, the southern Antarctic area. So I could never touch snow. It's one of the terrible things of my life. I never touched snow. I never experienced snow. I don't know how it feels. No, but in exchange, the weather is pretty much... I never experienced an earthquake, never experienced a hurricane. Nothing. Pretty much, that's the advantage. It always varies, as I was saying, between it's always around 20 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. It uses the European standard. 20 degrees Celsius. Right now it's kind of like it's the winter. We're in the middle of the winter. and we consider that we are at 15, between 15 and 18 Celsius. That's kind of like, in that sense, we don't get those cold winters from the Arctic region of Earth, because from the North Pole, essentially because it's not the same. The Arctic wind, I've researched this. I've read why it happens. Basically, the Arctic winter is kind of like colder, and not only that, there's less kind of like there are less mountains blocking it in the Arctic Ocean, because there's less landmass if you think about it. And basically, in the case of Argentina, we are in the middle of a huge landmass, and we have many more mountains than, I don't know, the same altitude would be, I don't know, Ireland or the United Kingdom. Pretty much inverted altitude, kind of like, if you think about it, we are similarly close to the South Pole, and Great Britain is similarly close to the North Pole when compared to us. But basically here we have, it's not that cold because of what I said, because it's not an island, so you're part of the continent, that's one, and second, there are more mountains far away, not where I live. Kind of like where I live, it's all, there are no mountains, but we have kind of like bigger a lot of mountains surrounding Argentina, kind of like at the edges, and that blocks a lot of the Antarctic winters in this case. And we only get the Atlantic winters from the kind of like the same system as Ireland, and the central Atlantic winters that get into Ireland and the UK and France. But here they are kind of like extremely diminished, because we're kind of like at the opposite of the North Pole, so we worry about something that is far away, and the Antarctic winters, because of the mountains, they never get to the capital. They do get to the edges, but they don't get to the capital. So yeah, in terms of winter, in terms of the temperature, I would say never. It's, in that sense, it's probably the only perfect thing about the only perfect thing about my country, I would say. So yeah, kind of like the temperature it's never extreme at the capital, at least. If you get to the edges, well, you are asking for it. You are asking for it if you get to the southernmost cone. But pretty much at the capital, you don't. It always jumps around 20 degrees Celsius. I'm mentioning this because last time I explained that the game has a realistic weather system. Eraser, what do you mean by that? Well, you will be surprised to know that the game is quite realistic. Have you noticed that in this region we have a lot of rain? Yes, Eraser, and what about it? Pretty similar to Europe. The map is based around Europe. Let's suppose this is Ireland, for example. Let's suppose this is Ireland. I'm not using the United Kingdom because the United Kingdom is here, kind of like inverted. Let's suppose this is Ireland. So there's snow here, but I've been mentioning the Atlantic winds, and that's what causes snow, like in Ireland, right? Like in real life. Now, snow, Atlantic winters, Atlantic winds, sorry. And snow. We have snow here. What do we have here? Mountains, right? And here we have the swamp region. And here we have a lot of rain. A lot of permanent rain. Do you know what happens when snow collides with mountains? People? I bet you do. It lowers the temperature of it, because the coldest temperature gets at the top of the mountain, and then to the other side of the Atlantic winter. This is what happens with the portion of Ireland. That's why there's a lot of rain. The mountains. That's why it doesn't snow the whole year, but only partially. Because if it doesn't get to an extremely cold temperature, like in the winter, the temperature is so low that you get the snow. But when it's not the winter, you get snow because of that. You get a rain because of that instead of snow. What do you mean by this? That the weather system of the game is probably one of the most realistic ones that I've seen. Probably due to the fact that the developers of the game are German, and they investigated the geography of Europe to create the game. In case you haven't noticed, the game has a perfect resemblance to Europe. Here's my beloved second citizenship, the Roman Colosseum, Italy. This is pretty much Italy. The Roman Colosseum is Italy. This section is this one is France. Griffenborg is France. I could even stumble upon an NPC that had my real middle name, which is French. See how realistic it is. This is like Germany. This is France. This section is like Germany, like Switzerland. This is like Ireland. This is like Iceland because it has a volcano. And the weather system of this is extremely realistic. This is pretty much the United Kingdom, the Great Britain. This is England. Pretty much the main island of England. Because then you have to include Northern Ireland. Alright, I think with my weather chat, we've explored. We're doing a pretty good exploration of the place.
Justifies all means.
No, what I mean is that the game has all of these subtle elements. Notice how all of these subtle elements magnify the realism of the game to an impressive degree. It also has a day-night system, but we've seen that in a lot of games. But we don't see realistic weather conditions related to the geography. Eraser, I cannot believe you are actually analyzing this, you're reviewing this. Yes, people. Of course, I first analyzed the core gameplay mechanics of the game, the level design and everything that I've been mentioning for 28 days. But all of these subtle elements add to the cohesion of the ambience of the game, people. In other words, the game is realistic. It's not only geographically realistic, but it's also realistic in terms of its weather. I don't know how to put it. It's realistic. The weather correlates with the geography. The weather correlates with the geography because we have a lot of rain in a region surrounded by mountains that block the snow. And it's a realistic behavior. It's a realistic weather behavior. Now, let's stop with this because I know it may sound like a stupid detail, because it doesn't impact the gameplay mechanics. At the end of the day, it doesn't impact the level design. It does impact the ambience and the grandeur, what I call the grandeur, pretty old school British term. To describe the impact of the level design, the psychological impact of the level design and the ambience on the player. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but if you pay attention to the sound of the game, there's a different soundtrack for the footsteps when it's raining when compared to when it's dry. When the floor is dry or the terrain is dry. So we have a triple cohesion of the environment on the player. Pay attention to the footsteps. I'll shut up for a sec. Those are not the normal footsteps. Those are not the normal footsteps. Can you hear the water splashing? See, in some sections it does not. For example here, and here it does. See how dynamic it feels. Consider, when we take into account that this is a game from 2008,
senselessly slaughtering.
When we add that fact to all of what I've been saying, it's even more impressive, don't you think? If you pay attention to the footstep sounds of your character in a lot of modern games, you'll realize that this is next to non-existent. They just add one soundtrack for cement or asphalt or whatever, kind of like normal terrain, and another one for grass or mud or anything that is an asphalt. Basically two samples, two sound samples. I've tested this in a lot of games, and it's mostly the case with modern games. So it gives you, it allows you to reflect upon this, the fact that it's incredible that a game from 2008 has it has many more, because it has another sample, another sound sample for the footsteps on rock or things like that. It's incredible that a game from 2008 has more ambient cohesion, complexity, more ambient cohesion than a lot of modern games. So, in perspective, when objectively compared, see how we can objectively compare things. That's something that relativism, as I always say, people, you must be fed up of listening to me say this. See how relativism has influenced game reviews in such a way that everything is a matter of opinion, and all of these facts are not taken into account. How metaphysical reality is ignored. When, remember what I always say, people, what I always say, when everything is a matter of mental perception, the only way that system works is by ignoring metaphysical reality. The only way you can argue, at the end of the day, that everything is a matter of opinion, that a game is good or bad, depending on whether the player likes the genre or not, or something like that, only works when you ignore metaphysical reality. Relativism only works after ignoring metaphysical reality, objective metaphysical reality. If we compare, let's use the footstep sounds as an example. We've used thousands of them, I know, but this is a clear. This one is, in fact, I think this is a much more clearer example than what we've been doing when talking about D3. Pretty good chat there. When we talked about E3 and the rest of them. When you define reality as the sum of mental perceptions, the only way that works is by ignoring metaphysical reality. Why? Because out of two mental perceptions, remember always this, people, out of two mental perceptions there will always be one that is closer to metaphysical reality. Always. Even by a marginal percentage, even by a slight detail or something. Out of two, the only way you can say that two opinions are the same, have the same value, is by ignoring metaphysical reality. This is something that modern relativism has sadly impregnated in the population, and it has a lot of consequences. Now, related to game reviews, I won't get into the effects it has on modern society. I talked about it in other streams, and it's way too much. It's way too much. It drags on way too much, and it's way too dense in the sense that it's a lot of top elements compressed in something that requires a lot of time. But applied to gaming, to game reviews especially, what's the most common reaction when someone thinks about a game? The most common reaction is, oh, well, it's a matter of opinion. If you pay attention to a lot of streamers, reviewers, use any, think about any any review you've seen online or anything, and you can perfectly see the impact of relativism on game reviews. What's the first reaction? Ah, well, it has these elements, it has this, and I think you like it, or I think you won't, based upon the fact if you like the genre or something like that. And basically the idea is, well, it will depend on the person. It'll depend on the person. That's a subjective argument, and the only way subjective arguments work, the only way you must have heard this 1,000 times in your real life, even unrelated to games, that when someone is cornered in an argument, in a debate, it doesn't need to be a discussion. Sorry, it doesn't need to be an argument or something violent at all. No, an intellectual debate or something. Doesn't need to be intellectual. Think about the Congress or the either the Congress or the Parliament in the case of if it's an European country. We have Congress in the case of Argentina. Argentina is a very weird case because we have a European culture mixed with American culture in a lot of aspects because we have Congress. It's a mixed system. We have American Congress with the president, which is very similar to America, to the US, but we have a European culture, so it's a pretty special case. So think about your Congress or Parliament of your own country, or any discussion or intellectual debate that you see on TV or in real life. When someone is cornered, and is generally not well versed in philosophy, 99% of the time, which is the normal case. People don't need to know about philosophy to explain this. What's the phrase? Yeah. Your argument has a lot of logic. The logic reasoning behind what you are telling me, which is opposed to what I'm telling you, has a lot of logic, but this is a matter of opinion. It's your opinion, and your opinion is worth as much as my opinion, so they are equal regardless of logical arguments. Regardless of logical arguments. That's the part that they don't say. Our opinions are worth the same regardless of logical arguments. That's the real message of relativism. Because the only way it works is by ignoring metaphysical reality. It's your opinion. It's a matter of opinion. Everything is a matter of opinion. Right? So all opinions are worth the same. That's a fallacy. That's a metaphysical fallacy. In the history of humanity, as far as we can explore metaphysical reality, people, in fact, when we think about it, what's reality? Do we exist in reality? Where do we exist? Where are we? In what part of the universe? And if we exist, if we truly exist, a pretty old question that we've always asked ourselves. Considering that it's even more that's magnified, it's even more exponentially expanded by when we realize the huge size of the cosmos and the universe we live in. Reality, pretty much. When we ask about metaphysical reality, does it exist? Well, that's the thing. The only way we can create a system in which two opinions are the same is by ignoring the existence of existence itself. So pretty brainstorming and brutal, but it has a lot of practical consequences that I can show you, that I've told you several times in the past. For example, what I just told you, everything is a matter of opinion. The problem is that it's such a subconscious process nowadays that we do it and we don't even realize it. It's a matter of opinion. That's your opinion. Yeah, but we never get... The second consequence of relativism is that you never get to any objective conclusion. It's your opinion, and I have mine. Well, and then what? How do we solve the problem? How do we solve the problem? If all opinions are worth the same. With that line of reasoning, see how easy it is to think about it? If you put in the effort See how stupid it actually is. Not stupid. It's a fallacy. It's a fallacy of a closed system, because relativism works as a closed system. Everything is a matter of opinion. Majority of opinions is the best. Now, that's the most efficient way of managing a country. It's true, democracy is the best way of managing a country. I would say that the monarchy of the UK is a bit more efficient. I have my reasons to argue that. The European monarchy is a bit more efficient, and also the hybrid system of Switzerland. But it works for democracy. Relativism works for democracy, but it doesn't work with mathematical sciences and explanation of metaphysical reality. Because out of two opinions, as I just told you, there will always be one that's closer to metaphysical reality. Always. If I say that, and all of this shit that I just said, all of this incredible argument that I just said, is related to game reviews. If I say that Sacred 2 is superior to the average isometric action RPG game because it has a higher abstract complexity because of what I've been explaining for 28 days, with logical arguments like the ones that you saw today, that you heard today, that's objective because of what I just said. Because if the other games don't have the soundtrack of the footsteps, and this one does, that's objective. That's metaphysical reality, people. Even if you tell me, well, but Titan Quest has this, or the other one Hey, thanks Alki9000 for being the 29th follower of the channel. Truly thanks from the bottom of my heart. Truly thank you from the bottom of my heart. As I always say, especially Twitch followers always are the prime and main reason that you all encourage me to continue showcasing and analyzing games as I do all of these amazing games that certainly deserve much more praise back in the day. So deep thanks from the bottom of my heart, Alki9000. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Deep thanks. I just hope that my crazy metaphysical analysis isn't way too crazy for that you are probably watching this trying to see the gameplay and everything, but this is basically what I do here. I analyze games on both a metaphysical and in-depth level. So deep thanks from the bottom of my heart. Deep thanks. These games always, I always say this, I deeply appreciate everyone who even takes a second of their time to watch my crazy reviews, both over at YouTube, but especially here over at Twitch, because it's pretty much I think I would say it's pretty much the hardest platform to grow on ever. Because on YouTube, I kind of like have videos with 600 views with this crazy analysis like this one that you must have heard, that you must have listened. And on YouTube, they're watched a lot, but here on Twitch, kind of like, I think it's the categories or something like that. The system is terrible for discoverability, so I deeply appreciate it. LKE9000. Hope my pronunciation is good in case you're a native speaker. Most of my viewers are native speakers. Hope I use a lot of British words. For example, learned, because I learned English in the main Cambridge school here in Argentina. We have a pretty long. That's a story for another time. Why Argentina has a lot of English speakers. I mean, not most of the population, but pretty much we have a lot of English speakers when compared to South America. That's because of the international relationships between the UK and Argentina during World War II. Then disaster struck. I've told that story, but it's way too much. Then another day I can tell it again, if you'd like, people. But yeah, essentially Argentina had a pretty close relationship with the UK during World War II, and then everything went to shit because of a stupid individual. It's a pretty interesting story. It's kind of like the most pathetic story ever. I told it on stream, but it's essentially Argentina was the only country that contributed with airplanes to defend, to help the Royal Air Force. The only South American country that contributed with airplanes to help the Royal Air Force during World War II. We were close allies because one of our presidents back then kind of like wanted to bring a lot of cultural ideas from the UK, and then everything went to shit after World War II, because then we had a president that hated the UK essentially, and there was a war, a stupid, and it wasn't a war, it was kind of like it was a routine check for the UK, and the idiots here invaded an island, and a shitty decision that they should have gone to jail for it. Oh well, very long story. Oh well, that's why you'll see that I use a lot of that. My accent is maybe a bit stressed, like for example, with wicked instead of wicked, which is the American pronunciation, I use wicked, or a lot of things like for example the T's. You can perfectly. I teach English. I teach English to both native speakers and ESOL speakers, which is English speakers of other languages, basically non-natives. I teach English, and yes, even if I make mistakes on stream, I teach English. I'm an English teacher, and basically, even if I make mistakes, you'll see that my pronunciation is kind of like Cambridge English, basically similar to the UK. It is the UK. So yeah, we were in the metaphysical analysis of the game. So deep thanks from the bottom of my heart. The metaphysical analysis of the game. The impact of what I've just mentioned, it gets much deeper, as I've said with games. It's a matter of opinion. You like this game, but not because of the game itself, not because of the inherent features of it. Notice the fallacy, the problem. It's a fallacy. It's a metaphysical fallacy. It's a philosophical fallacy. Sorry. And notice it, people. Notice how we change the main focus of the analysis. The game will be good or bad according to you, to the subject. That's why it's subjective, rather than the inherent qualities of it, the objective inherent qualities of it. See how it changes the focus. It completely changes the focus. You like the game because I saw you playing a pretty similar game, and I relate that in my head, in my mind, and you like it because you like something similar. But that doesn't explain, that doesn't objectively and inherently explains the quality of the game. See the problem? It doesn't reach the objective conclusion of what's the quality of the game, right? Because it changes the focus of the object of analysis from the game itself, from the gameplay mechanics themselves. It changes the focus to the subject of the relation. Of the relationship, sorry, which is the subject analyzing an object. It changes it. It inverts the polarity, the focus of the analysis. You'll like Titan Quest because you like Diablo, right? That may be true, but I didn't give you any logical arguments as to why you like it. See the difference between saying this, you like Diablo, you like Titan Quest. See the difference between this and you like Titan Quest because the combat gameplay mechanics and the abstract complexity of it expands upon the base gameplay mechanics of Diablo 2. However, in a lot of aspects, Titan Quest is I always use this example because it's perfect. it's much more simple than Diablo. It's simpler than Diablo. Why? Because there are builds, the relationship, the interaction between the skill tree and the gameplay mechanics is much simpler than in Diablo in a lot of cases. Why? Because in Titan Quest you have builds that are they're called one-click builds. They're called one-click builds. For example, I have one of those. I can show you. It's a build in which you only use basic attacks. You only use basic attacks. Tell me, in Diablo 2, can you beat Diablo 2 only using basic attacks? Without ever replacing your abilities? Probably not. So the difficulty, the complexity of the difficulty in Diablo 2 is still arguably higher than Titan Quest in that sense. See the difference between all of those logical arguments that I condensed in one aspect of the gameplay, because I can go on and cover others. See how all of those aspects were backed by logical arguments. See the difference between doing that and saying you like Diablo because you like Titan Quest. See the huge... There's an ocean of difference between those two explanations. That's why I say that relativism has had a negative impact on society as a whole, but especially on game. But as a collateral consequence, on game reviews, in what we care about in the here on the channel, which is video games. It has also reached it. So going back to the realist analysis of it, I can tell you that the footsteps, the sound of the variety of the sounds, of the sound samples of the footsteps in this game, it's much higher. The abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics are higher, and that's objective. That's not subjective. That's the problem. That nowadays, if you say this in public, someone will probably call you, I don't know, an idiot or a Nazi or an extremist or a radical, and it has nothing to do with that. Something like that. When you say that out of two opinions, they can never be equal. They can never have the same logical intrinsic value. Never. Because there will always be one out of both of them that's closer to metaphysical reality. I've used exaggerated examples in the past, but we can use them again. If I tell you that...
Even in death.
If I tell you... This is called reduction to the absurd examples.
I will make you
These are called, sorry. Reduction to the absurd examples. Here you have one. This is a gaming mouse, right? You see that with an exaggerated case, you'll notice it. This is a gaming mouse, or a mouse.
heretic.
What happens if I say right now that this is a chair? Two different opinions, two different doxas, as we used to call them as they used to call it in ancient Greece. The real notion, the real definition, because actually opinion is just it's a conveyed definition of actually mental perception. What we actually try to convey with opinion is mental perception. I hate the word opinion because it should be mental perception. Doxa in ancient Greece is much more similar. It was much more similar to the definition of mental perception back then to the Greeks, which pretty much are the precursors of Western culture. It's incredible. If you think about it, Greece and Rome was pretty much the body, and that inherited a lot of the teachings of Greece. But pretty much it was the embodiment of that philosophy, combined with practical military and correct territorial expansion. But if you think about it, in Greece they had a clearer idea of this than we have today. It's terrible. It's terrible to think about that. It's depressive. It's a bit depressive to think about it that way, that they could perfectly tell the difference between a mental perception and metaphysical reality. This was one of the crowning achievements, in fact, of Greek philosophy, that was later inherited in Rome and Western civilization as a whole. If you think about it, back in the day, back then, damn it, I hate that bleeding damage. Come on, let me get out of here. I don't want to lose my spider mount. Thank you. It costs $1 million, so no thanks. There we go. If you think about it, they could perfectly tell the difference between a mental perception, because they call them doxas, which is it was the original definition of opinion, and metaphysical reality. They were clearly defined, and nowadays, if you ask people what I just been telling you on the street, most people won't be able to tell you the difference. They will tell you that they will say that metaphysical reality is the sum of mental perceptions. Not with these words. They will say something like, probably, I'm just inferring here, I don't want to underestimate anyone at all, but we can all agree that the average answer would be, well, reality is what the majority says. That's the problem. And what the majority says is not always metaphysically the same as metaphysical reality. That's the huge problem, people. That's a huge problem. It's a conundrum. It's a millennial conundrum that we have. That reality, that metaphysical reality, as we perceive it, has. That it's difficult to dissociate your mental perception from objective metaphysical reality. That's the thing. It's difficult. It's quite difficult, but with the exaggerated example I told ya, it's easy. This is a gaming mouse. It's not a chair. If I say it's a chair, even if all the world agrees that this is a chair, it has the inherent and metaphysical qualities of a gaming mouse. Because a chair does not have electronics in it, because it doesn't have a Bluetooth connection. Yes, mine is wireless. But if it weren't, it doesn't have electronics in it, it's inherently different. It's not a matter that we agreed to call it a mouse. It is metaphysically different. That's the problem. But it's a clear example. Even if we all agreed to call this mouse a chair, it wouldn't be. But we all agreed to call it like that. We all agreed to it will be called like that in society. Yeah, but the fact that society calls it in a way does not mean that in its inherent metaphysical essence, nature and values is the same. Think about how many things you can apply this line of reasoning to, and you will have different consequences in life, in society and everything. We won't get to that, because it pretty much would involve extrapolating the purpose of the channel, but I'll leave it there, just so you can think about all of the consequences that it has had. Try to obliterate the mummy priests. Greetings, stranger. We need to work on our lizard man voice, as I said at the beginning. Greetings, stranger. Are you here in search of mutated ingredients for more potent alchemist elixirs? No, you don't look the type. You strike me as someone who would be interested in the group of strong mummies over there. Maybe that would be a rewarding challenge for you. Right then. And we get a legendary stuff. I don't know if it's two-handed or single-handed, but well. Now, let's leave the extrapolated consequences of all of that out of the analysis, and let's focus on the consequences that it has had on game reviews. Since everything is a matter of opinion, as I've said, you never reach any objective conclusions. That's what we do the polar opposite here on the channel. That's the idea, people. The first objective consequence of what we've been analyzing today, what I wanted to analyze today, the endgame gameplay mechanics and how they interact with each other. As I've said, the abstract complexity of being able to deal 4 types of elemental damages is inherently superior. It's inherently superior to most modern isometric action RPG games. Because of what I've been telling you. It involves a lot of mechanics that you don't even see in modern games. It's incredible that in modern life and in modern games, we have lost a lot of that complexity. As I always say, not all modern games are terrible. A lot of them have a lot of innovation, a lot of new mechanics. For example, the other day, I was looking for Nintendo 3DS. You know that I love the Nintendo 3DS. I'm probably among those that have fully explored the eShop and everything, and all of the whole library of games that it has. And I stumbled upon a game that was released after the Nintendo Switch, so it was after 2017 for the 3DS. And yeah, here we have it, another settlement. Zartaths. Look at that. Hey, we've explored it, and this is brimming with side quests. Full of side quests. Look at that. Good.
Comes over you.
Pretty amazing bloom effect there. I was researching for We'll Do the Ultimate Nintendo 3DS Showcase after the release of Shantae's Risky's Revolution, remember? Because I want that game to be released before we even we do it, because I've updated a lot of things. It'll be impressive if you've seen the last one. The last one is kind of like shitty compared to the one that we are gonna have. But I want the release of Shantae's Risky's Revolution. In case you don't know the Shantae series, amazing, developed by WayForward. Amazing 2D. It's a 2D Metroidvania, developed by WayForward, which are extremely talented developers. I don't know if you know them, but WayForward, amazing games. The Shantae series, it's amazing. It's basically Metroidvania combined with melee combat and platforming. Highly recommended, and they have managed to save the Game Boy Advance port that was originally a game that was going to be released for the Game Boy Advance, Shantae's Risky's Revolution, and it got cancelled right before being released. One of the most tragic stories in gaming history. I should point out the fact that I do all of the crazy stuff that you've been always watching people without. Most YouTube bots nowadays, most YouTube videos nowadays are kind of like scripted. I should be proud of the fact that I do all of this with my memory without scripting it. Yes, Shantae's Revolution was cancelled back in the day, and now it will be re-released as a modern game, but it will also be released with on the original Game Boy Advance. You'll be able to play it on the Game Boy Advance. And remember, the Nintendo 3DS inside has the components of the Nintendo DS, which in turn has the components of the Game Boy Advance. So it's actually native emulation. So it's technically the best way to. The Nintendo 3DS is basically the best way to play Nintendo DS games and Game Boy Advance games, because it's not emulation. It has inside the processor. It's kind of like divided, and it has a native Nintendo DS and a native Game Boy Advance. So. And you can convert the games. I know how to do it. Modders know how to do it, and I want to wait until I have run Shantae's Risky's Revolution on the 3DS before we do the Ultimate Showcase once again. In the meantime, I have a surprise that I'm about to finish. But well, more of an let me read because otherwise it's a huge wall of text. We need to work on the lizard voice. Destroy the dream, vampire. This one is much better. Take a look around you. Everyone here is completely exhausted, overtired, sick and half dead. Reasearch is already dead. This isn't normal, but I found out who or what is behind it all. Hey, pretty good. I managed to change the voice in a pretty good way. We are dealing with a creature that is just as horrible as it is rare. A creature that shouldn't exist, and yet it has infested our village. It's a dream vampire. This dream vampire robs people of their vital energy while they are sleeping. At first, the victims are merely tired, as if they didn't get a good night's sleep. They gradually become weaker and weaker until they finally die. Naturally, the village residents can't know any of this. There would be too much panic. You are my only hope. You must destroy the dream vampire. Unfortunately, the dream vampire never enters our world. He stays where he feels most at home, in the land of dreams. That is the only place where you can defeat him. Will you take on this task? I beg of you. Yeah, hope you enjoy my shitty imitation of a lizard. Man, but well, I guess it improved. Just to note, people, I wouldn't do it without the wall of text there, because then I have to rewatch the VOD in case if it was audible, if you could understood it. Maybe if you watch this as a YouTube VOD, you can tell me, people. Maybe, I don't know if it will be easy to understand, but well, I wouldn't do it without the wall of text right there that you could probably read before me adding voice to it. Fetch me a lotion for my skin complaint. Hello, kind sir. Or is it lady? No, what the fuck, we are clearly an inquisitor. Alright, but the game kind of like has locked sexes for the classes, so it could be sure good that angle. I can never tell with you folks. My eyes are poor, and on top of it, there's this blasted inflammation. I'm itchy all over. It keeps me up all night sometimes, and if enough to drive me around the bend. If only I could go to the healer, but I can't go out with this inflammation. I wouldn't want anyone to catch it. Would you go to his for me? He makes his lotions, and I'm sure he'll have something for skin inflammation. This is pretty interesting. You know, people that I also speak that I also speak Spanish because it's my native language, and I've studied when learning English the incredible differences when you speak a different language. There's a reason why nowadays it has been verified. Scientists have verified that learning a second language, or a different language, if you know, to a third one, a different language than your native language, it pretty much is kind of like a 100% effective shield against dementia and Alzheimer. It's incredible what this is being discovered right now, because over at the US, they have finally discovered a medicine to delay, not to cure, to delay Alzheimer. I know this because my grandma had dementia and then Alzheimer. It's incredible that a pretty much they developed not a cure, but a way to delay. I don't want to call it a cure because it doesn't fix it. It delays it. And well, give me a second. Kill some mutants. Did you see those dreadful mutants? They look strange. They look imitated, you know. And they were really spotted close there. Would you? I mean, for now, I can leave you with the post at the moment. It's a guard. Do you think you could kill a few of the mutated mutants? That's an understatement. That would be great. Scientists over at the US, of course, have discovered that learning a second language is probably the most effective shield ever against dementia and Alzheimer. Why? Why? And I can explain this because I investigated the topic previously, because I investigated the topic. I was told about the topic much earlier because I learned English at the age of 7. So I don't know how much of a non-native that counts as, but well, it's semi-native, I guess. But well, it is still not considered native, so I guess it's perfect non-native. So almost perfect. You can never get to perfection, not even if you are native in your native language, because the language is something that evolves. The reason why learning a second language absolutely obliterates the possibility of having Alzheimer or dementia is because of something that people are not mentioning enough, that I've been told about it back in the early 2000s by my English teachers. Speaking a second language pretty much forces the brain to use different parts of it. Yes, just as you heard it. When I speak in Spanish, I'm using a completely different part of the brain when compared to English. Languages, because of how they were created, this is amazing. This is probably one of humanity's greatest creations, language. Different languages use different parts of the brain. Why? Because the intonation uses different muscles of the throat. Because, for example, English is what we call a more constant language, and Spanish is kind of like this. The frequency of the sounds, if we would analyze them, it would be like this in Spanish, in a lot of, for example, in a lot of Romance languages. First, hey you, come over here. Come here. I have good ears, so I know what you are looking for, and I know how you could make a little money on the side. I happen to know a trader who is looking for volunteers, voluntary testers, if you know what I mean. His lotion is absolutely free. In fact, he'll even pay you to choose his product. So if you're interested, you'll find him close to town. You can't miss him.
Check in the
Pretty
book
much.
of quest.
If we would analyze the frequencies of a lot of Romance languages like French, Italian, Spanish, precisely, they are like this. The frequencies between the lows and the high pitches, they vary a lot. For example, and in English, they are more kind of like, on average, constant. And like that stupid difference, not stupid, it's incredible, like that difference, there are a lot of other incredible differences that cause the brain to use different parts of it. That make the brain use a different part of it. It's incredible, and it's a process that we take for granted. But as I've said, it's much more effective than any medicine or cure or remedy that we have invented yet. We have managed to delay, kind of like learning a second language, pretty much completely eliminates the possibility of having that. Even if it's genetic, even if it's due to genetic causes, because that's generally something that is caused by genetic. Those illnesses are generally caused by genetic causes. They're generally provoked by genetic causes. So yeah, highly recommended, people. Highly recommended. It doesn't matter if you don't speak perfectly or you haven't been practicing. It's kind of like an amazing. It's the best shield ever that scientists have encountered. So yeah, I wanted to always comment that because it's kind of like a popular topic now with the US debate and everything, with Biden and the arguments of the politics in the US, and that learning a second language pretty much eliminates any and all probabilities at all. Like, it forces the brain to, just like how consuming drugs is exactly the opposite. Called Trader Naru's tool, it destroys the left part of the left lobule of the brain, the left part of the brain, because it destroys the neural connections of the left side of the brain. That's right, I'll give you my lotion for free. I even pay you to give the lotion to Caesar. Just remember, don't tell him where you got it.
Was almost too
It destroys the left side of the neural connections of the brain, especially the memory. Have you noticed that when you talk to an individual who consumed drugs in the past, it's highly probable that he has a hard time remembering things? Well, that's because the neural connections of the left side of the brain are intrinsically tied to his memory, and since the drugs destroy that section, it destroys the memory. The short and long term memory. Mid, short, and long-term memory, all of them. But it affects short-term memory even more. Do you have the lotion? Oh yes, that's simply wonderful. At long last, the inflammation has stopped itching. It still tingles. What the stuff? The cultists have the truth.
For
Cultists. Well, there we go. Skin complaints. Very well. Pretty good. That one is pretty much done, people. Done. Let me consult the map. What do we have? What could we continue with? We should continue with what? We need to lay our next plan of action.